Hello everybody, Adrian Chandler back again. I think possibly for the last time to tell you a bit more about our new programme, An Englishman Abroad. I think we've covered most aspects of this programme now in our previous videos, but what I'd quite like to discuss is actually Matteis's importance in a European scene. When you think about Baroque music, you might think of the styles, the important styles being sort of Italy and France, and that you might know that the German style is basically a sort of a bit of a mishmash of the two of those, but with a sort of very sort of German thorough grounding of harmony in there. Interesting, if you look at a lot of Brescianello's suites, this is exactly what he does. Even his concertos, which are more Italian. If you just sort of hear it, as you're passing, it sounds quite Vivaldian. But if you actually look at what's going on in the inner parts, it reflects really what people like Bach, Teleman, and Matteis, etc. were doing. Anyway, Teleman is an interesting guy because he talks about writing music that has a mixed taste. So basically, Teleman is saying, don't just take one style. You get a bit of this and you get a bit of that and you get a bit of the other and you put it together and you have a mixed taste, and that's brilliant. And interestingly, one of the national styles that Teleman picks out is that of the English, which if you think about how many English composers worked on the continent, Matteis, I'm struggling to think, there's Robert Valentine in Italy, but I mean, that's slightly clutching at straws. Yeah. I'm sort of struggling to think, whereas if you think about the number of Italians and French and Germans that came to work in London, it's a completely different story. It doesn't mean, as I say, as Teleman would say, that the English style was totally unknown on the continent. And I do wonder whether Matteis, with his thorough grounding in sort of the Purcellian style that he obviously assimilated before he left London, might have been one of the key figures in the dissemination of the English style on the continent when he was working for Emperor Charles VI. So we have chosen as an illustration of English style by composers who aren't English, a suite by Teleman, suite in G minor for strings and continuo. The opening slow section of the overture is unbelievably Purcellian. And then he finishes it with an English air, air angloise. And likewise, in the second half of the programme, we also have an orchestral suite by Brescianello. This one in C major. And it's quite interesting because although Brescianello was working in Württemberg, which is 600 kilometres distant from Vienna, there were some fairly strong links between Württemberg, which is a minor court, and the imperial court in Vienna, which was huge because the Duke actually fought for Emperor Charles VI during the War of the Spanish Succession. So it stands to reason there might have been some exchange of ideas between the two courts. And it's quite interesting, this suite by Brescianello, it contains the only example of an Italian hornpipe, which is an English dance, that I can think of being written by an Italian who is not resident in England. So that's quite interesting also because he spells it wrong, which is quite endearing. And then he finishes with a gigue, not a giga. And Matteson talks about gigues as being more English. Matteson's theory about a giga, which I always think is maybe a little bit faster. Matteson wonders, because it's all so violinistic, whether it's more sort of German, sort of comes from Geiger, which is German for violin. Anyway, there you go. That kind of covers it, really. So if you're interested to hear before the concerts a little bit of music by Matteis, you might want to pop along and have a bit of a listen to some of our recording Extra Time. It's the one with all the footy shirts on the front, because there's an excerpt of a Matteis ballet suite, and then at the end of the disc there's a whole ballet suite